Lindsay Ward from WSLS 10, anchor of the 5:37 and 11 o'clock newscast here at WSLS. And we're standing in the daytime Blue Ridge kitchen. We thought this was an appropriate place for you to learn how to use your new portable radio, the Harris XG-75. And WSLS is proud to partner with the Bedford County Fire and Rescue to deliver this important message to you so you can get an overview of all of the new radio features and its accessories. Now, here's Chief Jones.
Thank you, Lindsay. We certainly appreciate your partnership on this very important project. One of the great benefits of this radio system upgrade is that Bedford County Department of Fire and Rescue is going to be able to place new communication devices in the hands of many of our members. As you know, many of the devices that are currently in the field have reached their life expectancy and they're no longer as functional as we would hope. The new XG-75 radio, with all of its attachments, is an enhanced radio. It has far more durability, greater power, and a number of choices working interoperability with our friends and our neighbors in the fire and rescue community. For our members to be the most effective and the most successful when they're deployed in the field, we need to learn how to use this device. It's not as simple as picking it up and communicating on it as we have in the past. Tonight we have Jeff Johnson and Deputy Fire Marshal Jeff Pauley with us that are going to take us through some of the procedures and some of the idiosyncrasies and specialties of this radio system that we're going to deploy. It's very important to recognize as we roll this system out, it's going to take time to get the radios into the field. And not all of our members are going to have access to this radio, this XG-75 radio initially. It's going to be a phased-in approach. So we certainly ask for your patience as we do this, but understand our goal is to protect the lives and property of the citizens and visitors of Bedford County. That includes our members. This device is going to provide an enhanced safety net for our members when they're in the field doing their most critical tasks. Some of the great components of this enhanced regional radio system, which Bedford County and our neighbors in the region have been working on for a number of years, are giving us an opportunity to provide more communication capability throughout. As we all know, there are targeted areas within Bedford County where we have at times experienced difficulty in communicating, namely in the areas Huddleston, Moneta, Stewartsville, some in Taylor's Mountain, and other areas perhaps in Big Island and the Boonesboro area. By enhanced tower placement, we're going to have better coverage throughout our system so that our individuals in the field communicating with an XG-75 or any of our family of portable radios will have the best opportunity to reach the Bedford Communications Center. As we know, areas in the shoreline have been difficult for communications. We've consistently had good coverage on the lake and in targeted areas of Huddleston, Moneta, Smith Mountain Lake, and Stewartsville. What we will soon be experiencing is increased communication on the areas of the shoreline where our work is done. Previously, the use of Southwest Ops was a component of our radio system that was meshed together to allow our members in the field to communicate. As we go forward with our system and our placement of additional towers, we will eliminate the need of Southwest Ops. In the Stewartsville, Chambersburg, and Hardy area will have the same connectivity as the remainder of the units in our system. Therefore, if we go to Ops 1, Ops 2, or Ops 3, Companies 13, Squad 13, 12, and any in that battalion will have the same opportunity to go to Ops channels, eliminating the need for Southwest Ops. We will see a consistent improvement in coverage from a portable throughout our county, which is a difference from our previous system. Again, keeping in mind the system that we are upgrading is approximately 17 years old, certainly in need of some enhancements. These towers will give us that opportunity to have the enhanced coverage. As we upgrade to the XG-75 radio, which is black and yellow in color for fire and rescue members in Bedford County, it's going to be a phased-in approach over a period of time so we can get the units deployed in the field and also ensure that our members are trained appropriately in their use. A number of the radios that we're featuring will be coming out of service and will no longer be functional once we reach a cutover point. Our LPE and our MRK radios will no longer be viable. Certain of our Jaguar series or 7100 series radios will be, and the Communications Center is going to need to validate which ones will be able to be upgraded to remain on our system. And of course, any of our newer XG-75 radios will be fully compliant. As our system is phased in, some of these radios will become completely out of service.
The radio system consists of a number of different channels or frequencies. One of those channels is known as the control channel, and the rest are the working channels, which are the voice channels. The control channel continuously passes data back and forth between the radios and the radio system. Radios, once they're powered on, continuously monitor the control channel, and the process to talk on the radio begins when you depress the push-to-talk switch, or PTT, on the side of the radio. That sends a message to the control channel, and it validates the lid number, or the radio ID number, and the group ID number, the talk group that we are going to talk on. Once that is verified, the user will receive a grant tone or a beep on the radio that allows you to start talking, and all that process takes less than 1 second. Keep in mind that you must wait until you receive that beep tone before you begin talking, otherwise part of your message will be cut off and not heard. When using the radio, identify the person you're calling and then identify yourself, and again talk in a clear, even tone. And this is the APCO standard, and this is what we want everyone to use from this point forward. If on an ops channel, at that point go ahead with your traffic. If you're on a dispatch channel, unless it's an emergency, wait for an acknowledgement and then begin your transmission.
Now let's talk about the features and functionality of the XG-75 radio. There's a lot of information to cover in this, so I'm going to use my notes to make sure that I don't miss anything. First, let's talk about the radio features. On the top view, you've got the on, off, and volume button. The larger button is your channel selector, 16 channels, obviously the antenna. Here is an A/B switch, and this is your emergency button. More about both of those in just a minute. If you are using a case, put your flex strap between the antenna and the external mic. It keeps the radio secure, and it keeps these two buttons for easy access. On the left side, the push-to-talk or PTT button. The bottom round button is kind of like the home button on some of your other electronic devices, and it will take you back to your selected channel from the menu. The top round button is part of the unlock feature. More about that in a sec too. On the front, turn the radio on so you can actually see what it's doing. The up and down buttons allow you to change menu selections or zones. This is the menu button. We'll cover all this stuff in more detail in a minute. This is the option button. This, when the radio is unlocked only, will invert the screen. So it's in one position and then it's in another position. Upside down, so it's hanging down at your side in the case, you can see it. The Add Delete button allows you to set priorities, and the Scan button, as you should all be familiar with, turns your scan on and off. So let's talk about the radio operation. Our communication system is made up of zones and channels. The channels are selected using the large round button on top, the channel selector. Some folks refer to these as talk groups, but we're going to use the word channels. Zones are selected using the up and down arrows. So you can select any of the zones. Again, terminology thing. Some folks call these systems. We're calling them zones for simplicity. There are 3 Bedford zones. The first one, which as you can see on this radio, says Bedford, has all of your primary operating channels on it. Your Ops 1, Ops 2, Southwest Ops, EMS North-South, all of those things are on there. The second zone that we have is called B_fire. That has all of your fire company private channels on it. The other one is B_rescue. That has all of the rescue squad private channels. On all 3 of these zones, the first and the last position, positions 1 and 16 on your channel selector, are fire dispatch. So no matter which zone of ours you're in, now this doesn't apply to the others, but the 3 Bedford zones, no matter which one you're in, if you crank this knob all the way one way or the other, you're on fire dispatch and you can talk there. As we mentioned, there are additional zones on the radio: the Stewartsville Tower, the conventional channel, Amherst, and Lynchburg. If you're operating in the Stewartsville, Hardy, Shady Grove area, you can switch your radio to the Stewartsville zone, which then puts you off of the Stewartsville Tower, and then select the appropriate channel. The agencies in that area, Hardy, Stewartsville, Shady Grove, Chambersburg, will have their private channels on the Stewartsville Tower also, in addition to the B rescue zone. After the upgrade next year to the new system, you won't have to do that anymore. Everything will be running off of the Bedford zone. The conventional channel, the 3 talk channels that you're used to, talk A, B, and L, are in the first 3 positions on your conventional zone. Please remember that these channels are point-to-point only. They don't go through the system, they don't hit any towers, and most importantly, the dispatchers don't monitor those. Unless you're working an incident in Amherst or Lynchburg, there's no reason for you to be on either one of those zones, so please stay away from there. So when you first get your radio, you should go to the B rescue and B fire zones and set your priorities. Typically, you want to set your private channel to a higher priority and turn off the other private channels. To do this, first turn off the scan feature using the scan button, then select the zone that you want to be in. In this case, we're in B rescue, and then you can use your channel selector, the add select, so in this case we're in squad 2, and push this down till you see no little bars, and then you have turned off squad 2 if you don't want to monitor that. In each of the private channel zones for fire and rescue, make sure that the fire dispatch channels at positions 1 and 16 are set to all 3 bars so that it's the highest priority. The others you can set to scan however you wish. The AB switch on top allows you to easily switch between the zones that your radio is set for. On every BCOFR radio, zone A, or A position on the switch, is the Bedford zone with all of the operating channels. When you go to the B switch, if you're a fire person, it will default to B fire. If you're a rescue person, obviously it goes to B rescue. You can use the switch to easily move back and forth between your 2 primary zones, but you can still switch to any other zone using the up and down arrow keys, which change the zones. Go to where you want, put the channel selector where you want, talk on that channel. When you switch back, it's going to go back to your preset A and Bs. So the typical setting for most people is to have their radio on the private channel. So on this radio, it's preset for fire. Here we have it on company 10 private. You turn on the scan, you're going to monitor fire company 10 and fire dispatch. Anything else that's set to scan, you will also hear. But at those 2, you're going to hear those with scan on. You know, scan's on when the little arrow is going around in the circle. So from here, if you need to talk on fire dispatch, all you have to do is turn the AB switch to A, and you're automatically on fire dispatch. Push the PTT, wait for the beep, start talking. It's that simple. Now, you want to go back to your private channel. Switch your AB switch back to B. It's going to default to fire dispatch, but all you have to do is use the channel selector, go up or down 1 and back, and you're back on the private channel that you wanted to be on. It's very simple, very easy to use. Likewise, if you're on an ops channel on Bedford Fire, you put the radio on Ops 1, you can go to your B side, switch to your private channel, talk. When you go back, it's going to say fire dispatch. One jog down and back up, and you're back to the ops channel that you were on. Whenever you're on an incident, you need to take the radio off of the scan mode, because when you are in scan, it's going around and listening to everything, and if there's conversations in other channels, you may miss where you are. So set your radio appropriately. So in this case, we're on Ops 2. Turn scan off, and then you're going to hear your incident on your Ops channel, in this case, Ops 2. If you leave scan on, that's not good. Remember that if you're on one of the conventional talk channels, you cannot scan to the other zones, so you're not going to hear what's going on any operations channel, dispatch channel, or whatever. So let's talk about the menu feature. The menu button takes you to the menu list. You'll see a lot of things there, and you can use the arrow keys to scroll through them. However, the only three that you can do anything with are the key lock, the contrast, and the backlight. And you can set the contrast and the backlight however you want. Backlight setting from 0 to 6, contrast is 1 to 4. The higher numbers are the highest settings. I would suggest that you leave it there, but you're welcome to do whatever you want with it. The main feature that you're going to use is the key lock. The important feature for the key lock is it keeps you from bumping these buttons and changing to a different zone unintentionally. So to lock the radio, it's very simple. You push the menu key, use the up or down arrows to scroll to key lock, and push again. And now the radio is locked. You can still change channels. You cannot change zones. You cannot use the option button to flip the screen. You cannot use the scan. Push to talk, and changing the channels only. To take the radio out of the locked position, push the menu key, the round button on the side on the top, and the radio will display unlocked, and you're good to go. Once it's locked, it will stay that way. Even if you turn the radio off and back on, it's still locked. Just unlock it when you need to. So there's a few other things that you need to know about this new XG-75 radio. In some channel positions, you will see the word blank. That just means that there's not a working channel programmed to that position. You will see some that say REG *F/E, regional fire. This is a regional channel that's monitored by all of the agencies that are on the system: Bedford, Amherst, Lynchburg. The only reason to use that channel is for emergency traffic within that jurisdiction. It's not to report an incident. That's what your cell phone is for. But if you have an emergency and you are somewhere else, other dispatchers in other areas will monitor that. The other one that you need to know about is called E911. It's another regional channel, but it's programmed to only go to our communications center. It does not go, when you transmit on it, to Amherst or Lynchburg. Do not use this channel for any reason unless you are specifically directed to. On the conventional zone, there are a number of nationwide interoperability, tactical and operational channels. Again, there's no reason for you to transmit on those unless you are at an incident where you are specifically directed to use them. Another thing that you need to be aware of, if you are going to use an external speaker mic, do not connect or disconnect it while the radio is on. Make sure the radio is off, hook it up, disconnect it, whatever you're going to do, and then turn the radio back on. If you do it while the radio is on, the software in the radio is not going to recognize it, and it's not going to work properly. And speaking of the speaker mics, while we haven't made a final decision yet on which one is going to be available, there's a strong likelihood that it's going to be the new Phoenix model from Stone Mountain, a Bedford County company. If we should get these, you will notice on one side there's a blue button. The blue button is for some future technology that's coming down the pike. It is not going to work or do anything right now. You do have on it, however, your push to talk, a volume button, which just turns it full or half or back to full, and the emergency button. We're going to talk more about the emergency button on both devices here very shortly. So please take the time to practice with your radio. It's got a lot of features and functionality that you can really best learn about by just getting in there and playing with it, see what works, see what doesn't work. Just make sure you're not hitting the push to talk button and transmitting on fire dispatch or an operational channel. Feel free to play with it on your private channels and learn and understand how it works. So now let's talk for a few minutes about the emergency button and its operation. As you know, in the past, the emergency buttons on our portables have not been activated. However, going forward with the XG-75s, they are going to be. All of these will be turned on, and as we go forward touching other radios, they will be turned on also. So there's some good stuff that you need to understand about how they work, what to do, what not to do. The radio has a depressed red button on it, and if you're using a speaker mic, it has one on it also. These are only to be used to declare an emergency where your personal safety is in danger. You can only use it when the dispatcher knows where you are, either at the scene of a call or at some other point where you have previously let them know where you are. If they don't know where you are, they can't send help to you, so it does you no good. And you're going to have to just key up the mic and say what you need without activating the emergency button. Under no circumstances is the emergency button to be used to report any incident to dispatch or to convey any other message to them other than when you are in immediate danger. To activate the emergency system, either button, you depress it and hold it for at least 1 second. When you do that, you will have 7 seconds of open microphone. If you can say something, this is the time for you to do it. Sir, put the gun down. Ma'am, step away. Whatever, something to let everybody know that you need help. You have 7 seconds to do that. In dispatch, they get an audible and visual alert at every console that it's been activated, and of course they can hear what you're saying if you say something. Everyone else that's on the channel that you're on hears something also. If you're on a private channel, that can be problematic. Most likely you're going to be on fire dispatch or an ops channel that's monitored by dispatch. But everybody else is going to hear it also on that same channel, and they will also receive a message on the screen that there's an emergency transmission. If you say nothing during this 7 seconds, the dispatcher is going to call you on the radio, and they're going to ask if you're okay, but they're going to do it phonetically in such a way that probably others are not going to know what they're asking. For example, if you're on the Medic 14-8 crew, they're going to call you and say, Medic 14-8, Ocean King, meaning, are you okay? If you can, this is your opportunity to say something. Disregard, we're okay, send law enforcement, whatever you need to do. If you say nothing, then they will call you one more time and ask that question. Either after the second one or after the first one, when you've said you need help, appropriate help will be immediately dispatched to your location without any further communication on their part or on yours. You need to know that the cavalry is on the way. If you're not on a call and somehow your button gets depressed, accidentally, probably, the same thing is going to happen. The dispatcher is going to call you, Medic 14-8, Ocean King. This is your best opportunity to say, sorry Bedford, accidental, disregard, we're okay, whatever. If you say nothing, they call you again, and they're going to ask the question again. If you're not on an incident, and they've called you twice with no answer, because they don't know where you are, no further action will be taken. All accidental activations of the emergency button will be reported through the E911 manager to Chief Jones or his designee, and appropriate action can be taken as a result. You may temporarily or permanently lose your privilege to have a radio and to talk on the radio for accidental use of the emergency button. A lot of resources can be put in play on the unnecessary use of these. Please, please, please be very careful with it. While I told you a few minutes ago that it's a good thing to practice with your radio and learn how it works, do not, under any circumstances, practice with the emergency button. Don't test it. Don't push it to see what it sounds like. All you hear is an open mic, or all others hear is an open mic. You will hear nothing. Don't mess with it. And also, please don't leave your radio where your friends, your family, your kids can get to it and play with it, because you are responsible for the safe and proper operation of the radio. And if somebody else gets a hold of it and starts messing with it, you're going to get the blame for it. So finally, I want to talk about accountability for just a second. In the past, admittedly, we've been pretty lax about how we've handed out radios and equipment. With the issuance of these radios, that's changing. Each agency coordinator, when they pick up the radios for their agency, will sign for them. When they hand them out to their individual members, you as the individual member will sign for the radio. Essentially, you're signing your life away. You understand that it's our radio, belongs to us, we control it, etc., etc. We know who each radio is assigned to. Anytime a radio is transferred, the agency has to notify us on the appropriate form that it's been transferred to someone else, and then that new person will also sign for it and acknowledge receipt of it and what their rights and responsibilities are. If you have any questions about the operation of the radio, please contact your local agency coordinator. Don't call Chief Jones, don't call Mr. Johnson, don't call me. The first step is your local agency coordinator. If they have a question, then they will come to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. That's really a great piece about using the red button when we're in a situation under duress. Another component of this, our red button or emergency alert, is under a Mayday situation. We all know that there's a policy and a procedure, standard operating guide, that we go through when we have to declare a Mayday on an incident. The member who's trapped or injured indicates the radio, keys the microphone, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. County 1, I'm on Division 2, the AB corner, the roof has collapsed, I'm running out of air. At that point, the incident commander will begin questioning the individual that's trapped, or the Mayday member will begin questioning them to locate them and ask them a series of questions. When declaring a Mayday, pushing the red button on the caller mic or the red button on the radio itself will also give us an open mic for the 7 seconds. By depressing this red button, declaring Mayday, 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 giving your radio identifier and your location allows the incident commander and people on the fire ground, and often, very importantly, the people in the communications center, your location and your radio identifier. This will be broadcast throughout our system, which is why it's so important that an activation of a red button be treated seriously. Once the red button is activated, that's when we begin our procedures to locate the trapped or missing member, or a member who's experienced duress on an EMS call or a standard call where they've activated their red button. These are some of the components that we're looking at in the enhanced system. It's really important for us to cover a couple, I think, pieces that are really important under this entire regional radio board and radio system upgrade. You know, we're standing in a kitchen, which is appropriate. A lot of our conversations, a lot of our training and our discussion goes on in our various stations, it goes on in the kitchen. So as we'll talk about this, our region is spending $17 million to do the required system upgrade. Bedford County itself will be spending probably $2.5 million on portable and mobile radios for the entire public safety community. The Department of Fire and Rescue has been very successful in grants through the Fire Act, State EMS, and State Emergency Management to offset a lot of the cost of these radios. This is the way that we've been able to deploy and are looking at deploying these into the field. We're really very excited. Very often we get frustrated with communications pieces and devices and the expenses. This is a great opportunity for us. Our Bedford County Fire and Rescue System is going to be going forward in a huge way. It's a great investment the local Board of Supervisors and our citizens are making in their local first responders. I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video, to embrace the new technology, and to get out there and do the great job that you're doing each and every day as you go out and protect the lives and property of the citizens and visitors of our county. Individually, we are strong. As a system, we are BCOFR strong. I want to thank you for all of your time and your commitment, and I wish you the best out there.
The proper operation and use of these new portable radios is essential to the success of every incident. And if you have a question about how to use these new radios, give your communications coordinator a call.